I'd like to introduce myself. Number one, I'm Laura with Franchise Times. I'm the editor-in-chief here, and I'm joined today by our senior editor, Beth Ewan. And we are going to be talking with you about our upcoming Dealmakers Week virtual event, along with our fabulous Dealmakers program, which Beth was the architect of, going back now 10 years. And so let's start, Beth, with just an overview of the project and why the heavy focus on M&A.
Well, thank you, Laura. Yeah, the Dealmakers Project has been a wonderful addition to our coverage. Everybody wants to know where the money is going in franchising. And so 10 years ago, actually, we started a nomination process every fall. Judges select winners in January, and then we do a big project talking to all those deal makers and telling our readers how they could also get a piece of this capital action. And so this year is special, the 10th anniversary, and next week during Dealmakers Week, we are going to be talking with those people who got the deals done and also ask them about how others can get a part of that action, because everybody wants capital, everybody needs capital in order to grow.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit about the selection process and what goes into the Dealmakers Awards program? Because it's not just, us saying, oh, these sound like interesting deals. That's certainly part of it, but there's a much deeper evaluation that goes on.
Yeah, there really is. And as the program has developed, the quality and complexity and number of deals that come into our project has, of course, just exploded. This year we had an amazing array of billion-dollar-plus exits, billion-dollar-plus entries, smaller brands, led by the founders, getting capital for the first time. I think that's something that's so interesting to our whole audience. Many other types of deals. We even had 2 initial public offerings, which pulled off in the midst of right after a pandemic year were pretty amazing. So we collect those nominations. We whittle it down, which is very, very difficult on our editorial staff, based on the impact of the deal, the complexity of the deal. And then we bring it to a panel of outside and staff judges who help us anoint the winners. We have this year 12 Dealmakers winners that really run the gamut of types of deals that are getting done out there.
Right. And certainly, the restaurant space is very active, but this year we have a number of non-restaurant deals. Can you kind of maybe just point out a few of the other ones that might not be familiar to our audience?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to start with 2 public deals. Exponential Fitness went public in a $100 million IPO, and they just did a secondary offering, I was told by their CFO, John Maloon, the other day, which is incredible. They went to market twice, which actually you, Laura, know about. Tell us a little bit about what happened to Exponential Fitness.
Yes. So they were preparing for their public offering just leading up to the pandemic, and they were, prepared to go out with that before things closed down. And so they went through a very grueling process, very emotional process, as their CFO, John, told me, and their CEO, Anthony Giesler, told me, just, pouring their hearts and souls into getting ready to go public, only to then have to pivot to closing all of their studios across all of their fitness brands. Exponential owns companies such as Club Pilates, Pure Barre, and a handful of others. They're now up to 10, because as part of this, after they went public, they also had a few acquisitions last year, so it was very active. But they had to turn around then and restart the process to finally go public last year. And this was a big goal for their CEO, personally and professionally. He wanted to do this. And so now, as a public company, they plan to, leverage those additional resources and go out and continue to acquire brands. Last year, they bought Rumble, which is a boxing concept, and they also acquired Body Fit Training, which is an Australian-based franchisor. And they had a pretty unique setup there, where those the master franchisee in Australia is going to now continue to operate those locations while Exponential expands in the US and Canada. So a lot of layers there, a lot of complexity.
Well, and that's fascinating. And for all of you founders out there with a fitness brand, Exponential Fitness is buying. So call them up. They're looking very, very actively. Another non-restaurant category, a group called Princeton Equity. It's a relatively new group. 2019, they raised a fund, and they are backing founders in consumer services, not restaurants, but everything else. So they backed Card My Yard, which is a really fascinating, fun franchise where they put celebratory greetings in your front yard with balloons. They backed the co-founders there, and that franchise is exploding. It had about 200 units when Princeton came in. Now they're over 500. Also, Princeton is backing 5-Star Franchising, which was led by a founder who started a franchise way back when he was 18 years old, sold it to Neighborly. Now he's backed by Princeton, and he's going on another acquisition tear. So this is an example of, if people become familiar, founders become familiar with these folks looking to invest, they can find ways to draw that capital to their own brands and learn how to do that by listening to our panel discussions when we do that next week.
Yes, there are so many nuances. We explore a lot of them in our print coverage in our upcoming May issue, and then along with our Dealmakers Week sessions that'll be coming up the week of April 25th. You can look for those and look on franchisetimes.com for information on that virtual event and to register. But we really, dive into a lot of these details and have some very interesting, compelling discussions where there's a lot to learn.
Well, I had a funny piece of advice that I've never heard before when I was talking with Jim Waskovich at Princeton Equity, and I was saying to him, well, who do you look for when you want to buy a founder-led company, and what should founders look for? And he said, well, I use the babysitter test. If I wouldn't hire them to babysit my 10 and 12-year-old girls, I'm not going to go there. So there's a little insider tip for you. I don't know if you ever thought of that.
I had not. And that is a great illustration of just the personal aspect that goes along with so many of these deals. Of course, it's, a financial move, but there is, so much behind the scenes and, just those nuances. Again, it's really fun to explore those. And I'm curious, were there any other, little nuggets that stood out to you in your reporting?
Oh, there's so many nuggets, Laura. I have to talk a little bit about one deal that I think probably every founder out there, every operator out there is going to be really interested in. That's James Bodenstedt and Mui Companies. He built his company up to 755 restaurants, sold them all in a spectacular exit last October, and made for more than $1 billion. I just might put that billion out there, and made 17 of his executives into instant millionaires because he gives equity way into the ranks at his company. That's part of his philosophy, and he'll be talking about that exit next week on Thursday with the investment banker at Auspex Capital that helped him make it happen. He had a very unique way of presenting the deals to 2 handpicked buyers. He put on one sheet of paper the terms for his 3 brands, what they were going to pay, what equity they would have, how much money they would make, take it or leave it. And guess what, Laura? They took it. So an interesting, aggressive, targeted way to do an exit that I think a lot of operators will find very intriguing.
Right, especially as, there was so much activity, through the pandemic, through 2020 and into 2021. The competitiveness around these deals, especially in the restaurant space, is really interesting. And so it's, a unique approach that he took, going out there with that one sheet of paper, but definitely some insight that he'll be able to share with our audience, again, to operators that might be looking to make an exit or looking for a roll-up or some more consolidation. A lot of the restaurant systems, especially, are looking at making those moves. One of our panels will cover that topic. Our restaurants editor, Nick Upton, we'll be talking with a couple of the deal winners about their roll-ups and consolidations within the restaurant industry. That's another trend that we're paying a lot of attention to and seeing a lot of activity in that space.
Absolutely. And it's called, entrepreneurship through acquisition. Al Bakhta is one of our winners who's doing that with the Sonic system. And he was telling us about, there's a lot of very small franchisees in that system, 1 to 5 units, which, that doesn't necessarily get a lot of love. But Al Bakhta goes after those family businesses one by one. He says they're very quirky. The books can be very, very funky. But as he said, and I love this quote, a family business is a unique and beautiful thing. He's got a lot of affection for those small operators that, put it all on the line and put their whole family's fortunes into it. And so he's helping them with an exit while helping the brand kind of elevate their entire system.
There are so many thoughtful buyers out there.
Yeah, there really
it's
are.
Great to hear that, and that there is, there are people putting that sort of care into their deals, and they want to be good stewards of the brand and of the legacy that some of these smaller operators are leaving behind. And so, again, that makes for just even more interesting coverage for us here at Franchise Times. As we wrap up here, Beth, anything else that you wanted to make sure to mention related to the program?
Well, I just have to say that our spectacular buyers deal, so I talked about the exit, of course, is Flynn Restaurant Group. He's a three-peat Dealmakers winner. This time he bought NPC International's restaurants, almost all of them, in a bankruptcy case. And what's cool about him is he's all about growth. He's also all about people. He said people are the best part of any acquisition. He was proud to keep the whole Pizza Hut operation together. He says those employees are phenomenal. And his view is to put resources into his operations, give people structure, give them freedom, and align incentives. And he says those same people are outperforming what they did with their Pizza Hut restaurants before. And his revenue, he was talking about it being $3.6 billion at the time of the sale. He thinks that's going upward, $3.8 billion or north this year, which is pretty remarkable to get that much sales growth first year after the acquisition. So I think people will find a lot of good, juicy stuff to learn about and hear about, and interesting stories to talk about during Dealmakers Week.
Absolutely. And we will be revealing our Deal of the Year at the end of Dealmakers Week, so that Thursday. So you'll want to tune in to all of those sessions starting again on Monday, April 25th, and going throughout the week. You can find more information at franchisetimes.com. And if you haven't already, you'll want to make sure to also sign up for our Dealmakers e-newsletter. That's where we glean a lot of these great deals from. And it's a great place to continue to monitor all the activity that's going on in the M&A space.
And to get part of your own,
yes,
right, Laura?
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, Beth, for joining us. And again, we look forward to seeing you all and hearing from you all for Dealmakers Week, April 25th, here at Franchise Times.